pushed back, taken by Williams, who goes forward to the 50. It's a first down.
Into the end zone. It is caught. Casey Washington's got it. Illinois pulled off the upset.
On the broadcast, how you hate candy corn. What's your favorite Halloween
Candy
game?
corn. I mean, I completely hate candy corn.
Welcome to The Review with your hosts, John Nelson, John Wilkerson, John Wood, and Phil Cantor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Review. It's the Online Sports Guys College Football Podcast featuring us, the Online Sports Guys. And yes, believe it or not, we have a full house today. Everybody in the room. Brother Wilkie's with us live. Well, or live while we record this.
Or is it Memorex?
He is present.
Plausibly live.
He is present and accounted for. Brother J-Dub able to make an appearance this week. And, of course, OSG Nelson and myself, OSG Phil. We are the Online Sports Guys, and we want to talk about what was one of the weirdest weeks of college football that I can remember in a long time.
Yeah.
Featuring a 9-overtime game, a game that was kind of decided on a phantom taunting call.
Oof.
Sure.
Another game featuring an undefeated team that had a basketball score.
And didn't even have the advantage in time of possession.
Nope. I think I know that team pretty familiar, actually.
I believe so.
Yeah, and that'll all be coming up here in the next couple minutes as we kind of go through week number 8 and hit on the highlights, the lowlights, and everything in between. Guys, might as well start at the top. The Oklahoma Sooners are ranked number 3 in the country. Quite honestly, I don't know how they won that game against what's arguably the worst team in college football.
It was a theft, is what happened.
Year, Kansas.
The quarterback stole the ball. It's like Havlicek. We need Johnny Most. Caleb Williams stole the ball. Caleb Williams stole the ball.
I don't know how this works into the rules.
Now, when that happened, I'm literally screaming at the television because I'm like, that looked so wrong. The running back was not going to get the first down. The quarterback just takes the ball and runs. And I'm like, that's not legal. The Big 12 refs come out and said it's legal. But it is legal, but it looks so wrong. And for Kansas to be so close, it just like made it worse.
I don't think it bodes well for Alex Grinch's defense at Oklahoma. It's been an issue all year. And then you go up against Kansas, which is, let's face it, J-Dub, they have an anemic offense.
Well, that's being nice
polite.
Yes.
Being polite to that offense.
Yet they had a pretty good game against Oklahoma.
Well, as I tell you about OU's defense this year.
I mean, you let Devin Neal get 100 yards rushing. You let Kwame Lassiter get 100 yards receiving against, like you said, arguably the worst offensive team in football. Oklahoma's going to they're like, wow, do we really want to be in the SEC? Because this is going to be rough for them if this continues for that defense.
Yeah, I'm not sure they can pull away from anybody this season. Every game has been close. Not many of them have been pretty, but yet they're winning.
And there's a quarterback controversy in Oklahoma who thought that was going to be starting at the beginning of the season.
I don't know if it's a controversy anymore. I think
Caleb Williams has kind of secured it. And it's interesting. I brought it up last week about the the name license and imaging deals, and Spencer Rattler having one of the more lucrative ones, and now he's on the bench. And you got guys like him and D.R. King and JT Daniels that all had these lucrative deals, and look at them now. But they're sticking with them. But back to Oklahoma, they got Texas Tech next, and on Saturday. And Texas Tech, I watched them last week. They got a pretty formidable offense, and they can stop people. So that game's in Norman, but unless this defense has performed some kind of miracle between now and then, I think it's going to be a tough one for OU to be able to get past.
And Kansas has got Oak State at Oak State, so that's going to be
just a matter of time.
An angry Oak State team.
Yes,
Oklahoma's luck runs out. You can't keep going with these nail biters.
Yes, but they find a way on offense to outscore people. I think that's going to be an issue against Texas Tech next week.
How long does Grinch survive if it keeps staying this way? Because their defense has been a question mark all year.
That's a good question. You might want to find a good real estate agent, don't you think?
Yes, and welcome to the portal, Spencer Rattler.
Yep. And talk about his draft stock, man. Spencer Rattler's he was one of the top 3-4 at the beginning of the season. Now he's not even on the radar.
Yeah, I know. That's incredible.
I'll try to move on again. Number 2 in Cincinnati in action as well. A little bit of a letdown game as they traveled up to play the Midshipmen of Navy, who's always a tough out, even though they're 1-6 now on the season. Cincinnati did get the win, but they didn't look quite as crisp or as sharp as they have in the past couple of games. I don't know that there's really much to read into this other than Cincinnati didn't lose. Am I reading that wrong?
No, I think it's the end of the road for Coach Ken, to be perfectly honest with you. And it's been what he has done with that program has been absolutely amazing. But I think that if you're Cincinnati, one of two things: you have to win big. And I don't know how a win where Navy scores late, then recovers the onside kick, but then I think they threw a pick or there was a late turnover there, and then they couldn't quite get the Duke. I don't know how folks are going to sit there and look at that in the polling numbers. I would look at the actual point totals as opposed to where they are in the standings. But Cincinnati's got to win out. They've got to win big. They just have to continue to put up these kind of numbers, J-Dub, as to what we're looking at here for Cincinnati to stay in that top 4.
I agree. I labeled this game at the beginning of the week as a trap game for Cincinnati because, no one ever looks forward to playing Navy. And, it's one of the situations where if you look the next game, what happens to the game you're playing? Desmond Ridder did not look sharp. I mean, he only completed 18 passes yesterday. I guess when you win, you don't need to. And the scores, like you said, the late score made the score look closer than it was. I mean, it was 27-10 going into the fourth quarter. But yeah, Cincinnati needs to win big and continue to do so to be relevant. And Wilkie, I'm not sure, if Ridder lost any stock yesterday. I mean, he still got the dub, right?
Still got the win. These tough grinding type of games, you've got to be able to overcome because they weren't on their game. And I credit some of Navy with that too. I thought they did a really good job offensively, controlling the ball and keeping the ball out of Desmond Ridder's hands. But when Cincinnati needed to make the big plays, they were able to, and that's a mark of a great team as well. But Cincinnati, I don't think it's going to drop because of Oklahoma's performance against Kansas. And if OU would have put up a basketball score and dominated Kansas, I could see a little flip flop there. But I don't think that's going to happen now. But since he's got to go to Tulane, and I expect a similar type of game against the Green Wave. It's going to be a grinding type game, unless Cincinnati is on their game. Maybe they'll put up 50 points, but they have to do that. And it's all coming down to me in November 20th against SMU. I mean, that's the game that you have to mark if you're a Cincinnati fan. And not only do you have to beat SMU, you got to beat them convincingly, and that'll solidify, in my opinion, although they got to win their championship game, their spot in the playoff if they can get that accomplished. But Cincinnati's got a lot on their shoulders. Not only got to win, they got to win by 3 or 4 touchdowns and put up a score that makes people's eyebrows raise.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the spots in the rankings. I think, I think Cincinnati's fine. But I do think Oklahoma will fall a spot with the win after what Alabama did to Tennessee, because that was a much more convincing win in the third Saturday in October than what we saw from Oklahoma. So I think I could easily see Oklahoma drop even with the win.
Tennessee gave Alabama a little bit of a tussle there for 3 quarters.
For 3 quarters.
But it's all about the branding and what we're looking for when it comes to those matchups, especially when you're trying to get everything set up for a top 4. I mean,
Alabama dropped the 28 spot on them in the fourth quarter.
And I think that's what folks are going to be looking at. It's like, yes, okay, you manage, and then you drop the hammer. And so I think that folks are going to be drawn to that fourth quarter before they'll be drawn to the first 3.
Well,
and
I
it
think
helped that it was in Tuscaloosa too.
Yeah, and I think what happened was, I mean, Heupel just getting this team rolling. The offense is good, defense is tired, and you saw the end. Saban took advantage of it, and I think that's where that difference is. Heupel's already doing more in Knoxville than any coach has done in the last decade. So I think actually the fact that we were competitive for 3 quarters, that was impressive in and of itself. But nobody was, I guess, confused or disappointed by that final score. That's what we all expected it to be.
Exactly. But, to me, when I was watching this, it was setting up to be much like the Alabama-Texas A&M game because, again, Tennessee was standing toe-to-toe with Alabama. And then in the fourth quarter, unlike against A&M, when Texas A&M did just enough to win and had a couple of bursts, those things didn't happen to Tennessee, and Alabama locked it down. I think it did help that they were in Tuscaloosa for this one, but it was an impressive fourth quarter for Alabama, and that's really the difference between Alabama and other programs. I mean, they're still strong when you get to the fourth quarter, and when you've got 4 deep at every position, you can do that.
But you can't. But you look at the score. Us following this SEC as closely as we have, Tennessee has not been even a thought about being a force in any situation, divisionally or conference-wise. And then you look at what Josh Heupel's already done with his offense. Hendon Hooker's looking like, resurrecting his career from Virginia Tech. We've got Cedric Tillman getting almost 160 yards receiving yesterday against this vaunted defense. The fact that, this team is still looking to be competitive in the fourth quarter, that bodes well for the SEC East, at least for Tennessee is concerned. But yeah, they're not going to win anything major anytime soon. But yeah, they're in the ball game. So I would
agree with you. The program's showing some signs of life for the first time in a long time.
And that rivalry needs to matter again.
The third Saturday in October only matters to Alabama fans now.
I know. It needs to matter again. I mean, that's one of the classic rivalries that has really kind of gone dormant, and it needs to be revived. So, Josh Heupel, that's one of your things you got to get accomplished.
It's one of your mission statements. So.
Yes.
The big boy in the SEC right now this season, the Georgia Bulldogs, they had the week off. We'll talk about them in the second half of the show when we start previewing games for the upcoming week. Chance for everybody to heal up a little bit and get healthy for the stretch run there. Let's move on to the Big Ten, guys, because there's a whole lot of chaos and confusion there. Ohio State,
you think?
Ohio State looks, just after stumbling out of the blocks early in a loss to Oklahoma, they look pretty damn good the last few weeks. This week, 54-7, a humongous win over Indiana. C.J. Stroud just keeps scoring touchdowns. He threw for 4 TDs in this game, and he is just absolutely killing it now that he's gotten comfortable in that offense.
And then you think to look at just the numbers, the percentages. He completed 21 passes, 4 of which were touchdowns. Very efficient, moved the ball around. He only had 4 or 5 incompletions. Very, very efficient yesterday against a arguably pretty decent Hoosiers team. They're not having a great season right now, but I mean they're decent. They're not a bad team. But, I mean, Stroud looked very efficient yesterday. And then you had Travion Henderson just chewing it up on the ground.
It was Indiana. They were 2-4, Wilkie. That's all I'm going to say. You better put up a big number. You put up 30 in the second quarter, and you're at 44-7
at the
at the
2020 version of Indiana, is it?
No.
Ohio State's like, hey, Oklahoma, this is how you're supposed to win these types of games.
Yeah, and we're kind of lining up here for Ohio State and Michigan may actually mean something this year because the Wolverines guys are 7-0.
Yeah, and they're not bad either. I kind of like the way I kind of like the way how they're shaping up right now. And when you look at the Big Ten East, you got Ohio State and Michigan there, but Michigan State is 4-0 too, and they had the week off. And I really like this Michigan State team. You've got a home run hitter in the backfield. You've got a paint-by-numbers quarterback that is not making mistakes. And you've got a big physical defense. And most of these guys are transfers. They have all taken the personality of Mel Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
And they are impressive. So don't discount Michigan State right now because I really love the way this team is shaped up. Now they're getting into the meat of their schedule though, because next week they host Michigan. So this is one of the tests.
Not going to be undefeated after next week.
Well, this is one of the tests for Jim Harbaugh. Wouldn't you say? He hasn't been able to be successful against the Spartans, and now Michigan State is undefeated. I mean, that is a huge game. And then the Sparties get Ohio State in a month, November 20th. So we're going to see Saturday just how good this Michigan State team is.
And like you was talking about the matchup between Michigan and Ohio State. Yeah, that's great. That's going to be like the weekend after Thanksgiving or something like that. I circled at the beginning of this year the Michigan State game because I don't trust a Jim Harbaugh team. Mm-mm. And yeah, they're 7-0, but what have they done for me lately? I have to see them beat Michigan State and beat Michigan State soundly for me to believe that this team is actually a decent 7-0 team. Yeah, they put up that number against Indiana, but you're supposed to. Next week against Michigan State, that is the true test for Jim Harbaugh, in my opinion.
I think that when you look at Michigan State, you're seeing them adapt or adopt the personality of their head coach. And I think that when you look at Mel Tucker, it's going to take time. And I think what you're seeing is the patience that's being given in East Lansing for Mel Tucker's identity, for his, for his pathos, for his, his whole personality to be a part of that program. And so it's amazing what happens when you give a head coach time and you let him, kind of get things done his way. And I think that what you're seeing is, you're seeing a Mel Tucker team evolve. It's that first year is always going to be the transition part where you're trying to get adjusted. Okay, what does the coach want? What does he want out of his players? Who's going to work well in the system? Who's not? Who's going to be coming in? That kind of thing. It's just another year of being comfortable and understanding what Mel Tucker wants. And so I think that's why we're seeing what we're seeing out of Michigan State. And Phil, I think that everybody's right, is that this is the first of two tests for Jim Harbaugh. And I don't think that the test against the team to the south is going to come out the way that Michigan fans are anticipating. So this one might be the bellwether for what we're looking at when it comes to a Michigan team this year.
I agree.
Lots of interest there. One other game featuring a ranked Big Ten team that we have to mention, and it's a game that probably sent the game of college football back at least a decade or two.
You ain't kidding, brother. 50 years.
Illinois beat Penn State in Happy Valley 20-18 in 9 overtimes.
It is caught. Casey Washington's got it. Illinois pulled off the upset.
I tend to understand the overtime system in college football, but there's something wrong if we're playing 9 overtimes, guys.
Yep, in that system, yes.
Yep. I mean, there's got to be something different. I mean, imagine there's got to be some cutoff, like the NFL has. There's got to be something like
call it a tie. Yeah. Both of those teams didn't deserve to win that game. Just call it a tie after like 4 or 5 and move on.
It's like you get a shot. You get a shot. Okay, field goal. You put it here, put it there, done. Like it should never have gotten past 5 overtimes.
Do we go the hockey variety?
Like a skills competition.
Go the hockey variety and play 3 overtimes and then leave it up to the field goal kickers?
And keep moving the field goal kicker back. Yeah. You got a 40-yard, a 50-yard, 60-yard.
Move it back 5 yards each time. Yeah. But it's just, and I think this speaks to the choice that was made in the mega overtime numbers. It's like, okay, so we're going to get your 2-point conversion. We're going to empty that notebook. I think that there's a different way to do it that would be more effective than just go 2-point. No, I know we don't need drives from the 25 and have that happen like we did with, was it LSU and Georgia, where they played forever. But there's got to be a simpler way. And I'll give Bob Wischusen all the credit in the world. He called the game for the 4-letter, and I think they were in the 6th or the 7th overtime. And Wischusen says, "I'd like to alert my bosses that I'm supposed to call the Jets game tomorrow, and I may not make it." So Wischusen gets credit for that line. And when the game was over, he turned to Dan Orlovsky, his tag team partner, and he goes, "This game is over, and I'm exhausted, as you should have been. It should not have taken 9 overtimes. There's got to be a better way when you get into the higher OT numbers to come up with a solution."
But Bob Wischusen, he's got to go from that game to calling a Jets game. Good God.
I know.
What can a guy do for a weekend?
What did he do to deserve this?
It's all about kidding. But you got to give Illinois credit. I mean, against number 7. No,
why?
Give me a second. I have a point. Really, I do. Going up against the number 7 Nittany Lions, you got Chase Brown and Joshua McCray putting up almost 400 yards rushing. against this defense when their quarterback only completes 38 yards worth of passes. So without those two, granted there wouldn't have been 9 overtimes, but Chase Brown getting almost 240 yards on the ground. I mean, Penn State's got to look. How did that happen? I mean,
to me,
it's not that good.
Look, to me, it's a typical Brett Bielema team at Illinois. They just out physical people, and it kind of showed how a little soft Penn State was on the interior lines. But Brett Bielema's teams always have home run hitters at running back. You go back to Alex Collins with Arkansas, and he had a mini at Wisconsin. He's always had that element with his teams, and and it was just a typical Brett Bielema type game where you're wondering how the hell did the Illinois win this game? Well, they did it by just pummeling Penn State and then ramming it down their throat.
And they went away from that in the middle overtime periods and tried to get cute.
Oh, you know what? It worked out.
Eventually.
And again, it's a Brett Bielema coach team, so there you go.
Yeah, a couple of interesting upsets there with Penn State losing, although I think they at number 7 Penn State was a bit overrated. The number 8 team in the country also went down this week as Iowa State, October's best college football team, beat Oklahoma State 24-21 in a crazy game. And I'll try and find the clip here to drop into the show. But somehow, some way, Oklahoma State lost a touchdown because taunting call?
I hate this penalty. It is stupid. And I want to have someone to come on camera and say, this is why this is taunting, because there was nothing there. It was a phantom targeting call. It was nothing there.
They ran into the end zone like this.
Yep. Was it when they turned his shoulder and looked back to see if he was there? I mean, there was no taunting at all. And if that's taunting, we are soft. NCAA is one step softer than we were, and it just pissed me off watching that yesterday.
I just can't. I legitimately can't.
Yeah.
Because if you sit there and you have a rule, and you sit there and one person's interpretation of taunting is different from another person's interpretation of taunting, it's like the Supreme Court justice saying, I can't describe it to you, but I know it when I see it. And you're looking at it going, I mean, no, just look, taunting. Yes. Taunting, you're kicking somebody, you're standing over them, you're being overbearing, you're doing whatever. But what happened in that particular game, you're going, really? Okay. So, when you leave something open to interpretation and you don't have a set, 5-paragraph essay when it comes to bylaws, then you're going to have moments like this. And I think that it has to be addressed.
And I'm going to go on record.
Go ahead, John.
I'm going to go on record as the worst call in NCAA history.
Yeah, I just wonder what the officials meeting is going to be like with the director of Big 12 officials when they do their review.
I don't know how you can.
Good luck reviewing that.
Explain or justify that.
Nope.
Yeah.
There is none.
The number 10 Oregon Ducks got a win. They maintained their lead in the Pac-12, 34-31 over UCLA. Figured this was going to be a tough game, but I think like every year for like the last 7 or 8 years, the Pac-10 is just kind of there.
We've said that since the very beginning about how the Pac-10's an afterthought way out there. This is just another example about that.
Well, and remember that this was a UCLA team who had a 14-0 lead after the first. And it took a while for Oregon to remember that there were actually, playing a Pac-12 14 game, and I think that you look at those middle 2 quarters when they outscore UCLA 27-3. And I think that you're looking at 2 different Oregons, and you can't afford to be the Oregon that you were in the first quarter if you're having to be the one in the second and third quarter to get that Rose Bowl berth, to try to work your way maybe into an outside chance of one of the top 4 positions if things have to fall your way. And a lot of things have to fall your way, but you have to be that team in the middle 2 quarters. You can't be the one that falls behind to Chip Kelly the way that you did if you're looking to finish as strongly as you're hoping.
Interesting if serve holds in the Pac-12, Oregon and Oregon State, the Civil War will decide the North.
Go figure.
So hats off to the Beavers. I mean, they're having a turnaround season this year, and that's kind of snuck up on everyone. And so I think it's interesting. You know, we're talking Oregon, and you know, I thought you got to win it's the conference game, and UCLA is better, but they were in the Rose Bowl, but Oregon was able to overcome in a grinding type game that, you know, you got to win those type. But to see Oregon State now up in the up toward the top, and knowing that the Civil War could decide that, I think that's quite refreshing.
Again, one of those games that now will mean something again.
Yeah, exactly.
Very much so. How about the Ole Miss Rebels, guys? Another good performance. They easily take care of business with LSU, 31-17.
Why is Ed Orgeron still on the sideline?
I'm leaving.
Why?
No, I think he was more like asked to leave as opposed to.
Well, no, I mean just in general, it's like yes, we know your contract is not being renewed at the end of the season. The way that this team did not once again show up, you're up 7-0. Then after 3, you're down 31-7, and you get 10 points in an by the way fourth quarter. Why is Ed Orgeron still on the sideline currently? It's too much of a weird vibe. It's just it sends the wrong message. It's just a bad it's a bad visual right now for a team that is now 4-4 in the SEC West. It's just a lot of things that don't compute here. Why is he still on the sideline? Yes, you're getting your buyout. We know this. And I know that a lot of this
buyout, whether he's coaching or not.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, why are you there? If LSU's going to cut him an 8-figure check, cut him the 8-figure check, cut it loose, because you know that his presence could have a negative impact on recruiting. And you can't have that with early signing day coming up in about 6 weeks. This is just a bad visual all the way around.
I agree with you completely. And like I would, and if I was a player on the sideline, knowing that I have a lame duck head coach, let the offensive coordinator, let Jake Peets or somebody, or maybe Durante Jones, who is the defensive coordinator, someone step up.
Coach.
Let them be in there, because no wonder the team's not rallying around a lame duck coach, because, I can say, you're not my father. I don't have to do what you tell me to do. You're not here anymore. Yeah. So that's why that team is not rallying around Coach O. Love him to death. Can't understand a word he says, but I wouldn't play for him if I was a coach, at least not try to game like Ole Miss when you need to step up and have your A game. I agree with you, Nelson, completely. I don't understand why he's still in the purple and gold.
Guys, let's move on to a game that resembled a basketball score. Wake Forest versus Army.
Yeah, I want to hear Wilkie's version of this.
Wake Forest moves to 7-0 and drops a 70 spot on Army, but Army scored 56 points. I'm not sure if these two teams played in basketball, they would score that much.
I'm deferring my comments to Wilkie in this segment.
And I'm too close to the subject, so I want to hear Wilkie's take too.
J-Dub played for Wake. Come on now. He's been in those wars. When I actually watched this game, and Wake had 2 weeks to prepare for that option offense of Army, and I don't know what they did in that 2 weeks, because they were confused and razzled and everything. But man, is Sam Hartman big time. I mean, I love the decisions he made in that game and in that offense. And yeah, I guess you have to outscore people sometimes, and Wake has that ability. But I think they're lucky that they get to escape West Point with a win, because of how poorly their defense played. And I tell you, that offense is just clicking on all cylinders. And again, I'm so impressed with Sam Hartman, and knowing now with Clemson's loss that this is the team right now in the ACC is Wake Forest. And this isn't like your 2007 Wake Forest team that came out of nowhere and shocked the world pretty much.
It's pretty close.
This team, Dave Clawson has had some really good seasons at Wake, and they've been in the postseason, and they've been on the radar screen, not nationally, but in the ACC. But now, I mean, they've taken a next step in the conference. And if the season ended today, it would be Wake and Pitt in the SEC
Yeah, we'll get
championship
to Pitt in
game.
just a second.
Yeah, I know.
The thing with me, having such, lost such blood, sweat, and tears of this program. First time I think in program history we're 7-0. I mean, Sam Hartman is just one of my favorite all-time people. He's running this offense. I mean, you look at Jaquari Robinson, right? Stepped up. He had like 160 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns yesterday. That offense is just amazing. That aside, okay, I was at Wake Forest when we were like 1-11, 2-10. That's the Wake Forest I remember. But looking at this team, what Dave Clawson has done offensively, they're right there. Defensively, the jury's still out. Because if you put this team right now against Pittsburgh, we'll talk about Kenny Pickett here shortly. You put Wake and Pittsburgh together right now.
Oh yeah,
this Wake will not. This going to come out a different scenario for Wake, and that worries me. I'm happy that Wake Forest is the top-rated ACC team right now in the country. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the season? I'm happy, but that defensive question mark bothers me because Army's a good team. They're not a 56 points against a Power 5 team good. And that bothers me, even though they did score, 21 points in the fourth quarter. I'm happy, but I'm guarded against this team.
November is going to be a rough time for Wake because they have to go to North Carolina. They host NC State. Both teams have good offenses and are going to expose every weakness that Wake has on defense. And then after NC State, they host or go to Clemson. And, they have a weak and anemic offense right now. But it might be enough to get past Wake because that Clemson defense is still elite. And Sam Hartman is going to have a little bit of a test. Yep. I think he can pass it because I am more and more impressed with this kid as he takes snaps for the Deeks. And, J-Dub, I don't know what your feelings are with Dave Clawson, but I think he's done more with less than any coach in the country right now. He's always been that type of coach. He's always been in those type of programs and been successful there. And I think Wake is reaping the benefits of that experience.
Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say real quick, J-Dub, 70 points in just over 17 minutes of time of possession.
I mean, it goes to show you.
Break.
It just goes to show you what kind of quarterback Sam Hartman can be. But two things. One, when we lost Jim Grobe, when we had to replace Jim Grobe with Dave Clawson, I was skeptical. I am as big a Jim Grobe fan as you can find. And I didn't think Dave Clawson could continue on what Jim Grobe did in Winston-Salem. I was pleasantly wrong. The other thing that I'm worrying about the stretch for Wake Forest. You mentioned the teams. It's not just the teams; it's where they're playing. 3 out of these next 4 games are on the road for Wake Forest. They host Clemson, and that's not an easy thing. Even though Clemson now has a backup quarterback that is a name that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. It's just going to be it's tough for Wake, but I'm happy to see them playing. I want to see Wake and Pitt in the championship. I want to see that. I want to see that game.
Speaking of the Pitt Panthers, they did get the win over Clemson this week, 27-17. Dropping Clemson to 4-3. And guys, any of you or anybody that you know, how many of them do you think actually could say that at the beginning of this season that Pitt and Wake Forest were going to be your 2 strongest teams in the ACC?
None. Not it.
And major props to the job that's being done in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett has turned into one of the better quarterbacks in college football this season. Against Clemson, he went 25 for 39, 302 and a couple of touchdowns. The Panthers looked legit, and Clemson just, I don't know what it is, but they cannot play offense.
And DJU gets benched in this game too, Wilkie.
Yeah, he did get benched, and I give up on Clemson's offense. I mean, I don't know what the fact is. You don't have a first-round NFL caliber quarterback back there is the glaring reason.
Yep.
But you don't have a home run hitter in the backfield anymore. The offensive line is leaky this year. And who's stepping up to catch big passes for your quarterback? There's a lot of issues in that offense, and the defense still remains elite, but I think they're getting tired and beaten down, to be honest with you. And this is the team that Pat Narduzzi has been begging for since he took the job. And it took 7 years to get it. And he's got a great quarterback now, Kenny Pickett, who's now putting himself in the Heisman Trophy race. And, I remember something Pat Narduzzi told me years ago when he first took the job about being a coach in Pittsburgh. They have great high school football in Western Pennsylvania. So that's covered. And, obviously the Steelers are year in and year out in the playoff race, an elite Super Bowl NFL franchise. He goes, now it's my job to take care of what goes on Saturdays. And he's starting to do that now. We're seeing the building blocks that it took a while for Pat Narduzzi to build. Yeah, they had that one season in the ACC championship game, but it was a 7-5 type season, and it was just, okay, you're there, you're fodder for Clemson. Now they're somewhat legit, and they're building the program there.
Yep.
And personally, I think it's time because, I've been to Pitt a few times, been in their facilities. I never understood why this team doesn't win 10 games a year. Yeah. When you're able to share facilities with the Steelers, and to me, it's just as good as any of the SEC facilities that I've seen. I think I never could understand that, and I think people are now starting to understand that Pitt might be a good option for you to go to because it's football centric.
And the beginning of the year, obviously Heisman Trophy race, you had like Bryce Young and Matt Corral and those guys. Kenny Pickett right now is my number one dark horse to win the Heisman this year. Listen to the stat line: 168 for 244 for 2,200 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, 1 interception with a QBR rating of 176.1. That's insane.
It is. And you know what? They've got, I don't want to say it's a soft schedule, but it's a favorable schedule from here on out. I mean, they host Miami, and then they go to Duke. They host North Carolina, Virginia, and then they wrap up the season at Syracuse. That's a manageable schedule right there to go 11-1 when you're going into the title game. So Pitt is on. I tell you, Pitt is it right now. They're moving up.
Yep. Guys, Heisman, right here.
Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to the UTSA Roadrunners.
There you go.
For them, 45-16, 8-0 on the season. Congratulations for Texas San Antonio. Great job, guys. Keep on winning games, and then let's see where the chips fall.
The Roadrunners,
guys.
Don't forget about my Mountaineers. App State took down Coastal this week.
That's right.
Yeah. That App State gets a game-winning field goal, takes down Coastal Carolina. Great game, 30-27. I said it last week on the show when we were talking. John and I were previewing the games for previous week. Excuse me. And Boone is an impossible place to play if you're an opposing team, and that got borne out fully and foremost there. App State, huge win, 5-2 on the season. Coastal takes their first regular season loss in 2 years. Good on them. Love to see that.
Yeah, that was the biggest story up here in this neck of the woods.
No.
With that being said, I think, guys, we need to take a break here. We've been talking for a good 35 minutes almost.
Is that all?
When we come back in the second half of the show, we got to talk about galactic realignment because there's some change afoot, even more change. And we'll take a look ahead at the upcoming week as we start getting closer and closer to rivalry week and inch our way towards the finish line of the college football season. We'll be back in roughly about a minute and a half, so please stick around. I got to do this part. You are listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
The OSG app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. Install the OSG app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, and lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Download the OSG app today.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
The other thing I like is when they used to have the sprees in a box.
Thanks for sticking around, folks. You have made it to the second half of the show. This is The Review, and we are the Online Sports Guys. This is our college football show where every week we break down what happens in the great, big, wide, wonderful world of college football. It's featuring us, of course, the Online Sports Guys. And before we get into the game action and college football talk, got to do the social media plug. Make sure you find us on social media. Just look up at OSG Sports. We're everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Whole 9 yards. We are there. Our website is theonlinesportsguys.com. And of course, John's part of the show where he gets to flash his phone because he likes to do that.
Yes.
He is holding up what is the OSG Sports phone app. Get it today. Download it now. It is free on the Apple Store, at the Apple Store, and on Google Play. Get notifications, updates, alerts anytime we cut a new show or our Soccer Down Here show. So much great content, so much to talk about. Guys, let's talk galactic realignment again. We talked about some of the big conferences kind of resetting the stage a little bit earlier this summer. As we kind of progress through the season, some word came out this week that some of the smaller conferences have started to raid each other. First came the AAC, who announced that they were going to be adding 6 teams. Then comes the Sun Belt, who for sure added at least 1 and is probably going to be adding 4 teams. Almost all of them coming from Conference USA, which leaves us potentially without a Conference USA.
Everybody, yeah, they lose everybody.
So man. They'll go the way of the Southwest Conference and Big East football.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. So let's see if we can piece this together. So Southern Miss accepts a Sun Belt invitation on Friday.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, and Marshall and Old Dominion, who are regional dance partners, would be a good package deal for anybody, and it would help out with an East-West realignment of insert conference here.
Yep.
If you wanted to do something like that. They're trying to court James Madison out of the FCS, which would be a good third dance partner if they would make their way up from FCS to FBS.
Which they've been looking at for some time.
Right. And so then if Marshall and Old Dominion join Southern Miss in Conference USA, out of Conference USA to the Fun Belt, Conference USA goes from 8 to 5. And Wilkie, this is where the fun starts.
Yeah, because they lose their automatic invitation to the NCAA basketball tournament. And for the Conference USA, that's significant revenue for them. In any of those group of 5 schools that where football is kind of limited, I guess, let's put it that way.
Football's challenged.
Yeah. This really leaves very few options for Conference USA should all this transpire, and it looks like it's going to. They've already lost Charlotte, Florida Atlantic, North Texas, Rice, UAB, and Texas San Antonio to the American, and they're going to lose probably Marshall and Old Dominion, and so it's. What's their options? I mean, right now their options is go independent. And who's that? What's Connecticut and UMass and New Mexico State and I think they've even decided if they can coax Liberty into coming in.
Right.
Liberty they've got an invitation pending from the Sun Belt, and I think they're leaning toward that. So I got to credit the Sun Belt Conference for being aggressive with this and knowing where they stand. In other words, they know that they have a lot of advantages that the other conferences don't have in the group of 6. Yep. In the southern part of the United States, they took advantage of the 2020 and COVID and getting exposure early on and beating those big schools. And then you got a luck factor with Coastal Carolina being in the top, ranked in the polls throughout most of the year, and a storyline. And then the conference is blessed with some really good coaches, and coaches that have a chance to move on, but they're being very judicious about when they move. Billy Napier could take any job he wanted to, but there's only certain jobs he wants, and he knows he's got it good in Louisiana, and he may be happy there to stay for 10 years before he makes the move. Yeah. So Sunbelt has really put themselves in a great position with the expansion to be kind of like that little brother to the SEC.
Yeah. And like I said, I told some of my friends earlier when the American announced all these teams that they were adding, I was like, if I was the Sunbelt commissioner, I'd be like, here, hold my beer. Let me show you how it really is supposed to be done. And I really think the Sun Belt really outshined and outclassed the AAC with this particular realignment move. But then you look at what we talked about with the Big 12 when they lost Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC. We're like, okay, they have a core there. John and I fought for weeks that it was dead. But they had a good core to build around. Look at what Conference USA has. They've got what? Western Kentucky, MTSU, FIU left, UTEP. I mean, you can't do anything with that. That's not a core to build around. I mean, they have no option right now.
Yeah,
there's no core school there.
The only school that has any kind of, and it's kind of a stretch, is Louisiana Tech. I mean, they've got some tradition there, but it's not enough to build a foundation around. Mm-hmm. And I think they'd be an attractive school for the American or for the Sun Belt. And I think they'd be a better fit for the Sun Belt because they play Louisiana every year, and that'd be a nice little rivalry, wouldn't it? But Conference USA has just got nothing. I mean, you can add a New Mexico State and a UMass and a UConn, and okay, you're adding a good basketball program, and that's fallen on hard times now
you
too.
You could call yourself the bottom of the barrel contest.
Exactly. I mean, and find any FCS school program that's a warm body that just wants to move up to the FBS. I mean, come on.
And that's where Pete Thamel was looking at some of the dance partners here for Confusa. It's apparently allegedly engaged with Sam Houston State, which is a quality FCS program, consistently making their way into the playoffs, making deep runs. New Mexico State, which is not a quality Division I football program at times, and Tarleton State out of the Lone Star Conference. And then there were other conversations. Dennis Dodd at CBS Sports had Sam Houston out of the WAC, McNeese out of the Southland. And so, yes, those are good dance partners in the FCS. Would they want to jump up to Division I FBS? And two, you're also looking at that multi-year progression that it takes for them to move up and be full-blown FBS members. Do they want to go through all of those headaches? I think that Conference USA is in serious trouble right now, and they're trying to find somebody that's got those electric paddles that can sit there and work on them on the gurney there in the emergency room. This is a bad stretch.
And I saw a report on this Technical Woods, the Big South is based out of Charlotte. There's some rumbling and scuttlebutt that they might be looking at possibly Middle Tennessee or Western Kentucky. I'm not sure exactly what, because right now they have 9 teams in the Big South.
But remember, you're starting that ASUN football conference now too.
Exactly.
And so the Big South is losing partners that were there heading into this new ASUN conference that we're looking at in the FCS. And once again, do you want to jump from something that you've just jumped to or that you're a part of to jump into a new situation in FBS? Or do you want to stick geographically with where you are and financially with where you are too? Because a lot of talk in this forgets the financial implication and the financial investment that it's going to take to go from 1AA to full-blown Division I. How many schools in this environment currently are comfortable doing that? That's a very small number.
Well, I can tell you when Campbell jumped from the Pioneer League or Pioneer League to Big South, the conference dumped a lot of money into Campbell, upgrading facilities, fields, video boards to make it Big South worthy, getting us to that point. You're right, John. It's a huge financial burden or hurdle for some of these smaller schools to make that jump. I mean, it was very difficult for Campbell to do that. They had to really impress the Big South and put themselves in a certain position before the Big South. They're like, okay, here, let me replace your entire turf field at Barker Lane Stadium. Let me get you a brand new video board. Let me put you a video board in the baseball field. Big South put a lot of money into Campbell. it's paying off for the conference. But Tarleton State, I mean, some of these other schools might not be as big, as good an investment for a conference in that particular way.
Yeah, I think they need to stay in their lane. There's no need to move up if you're playing well in the FCS and you're in the playoff. You're getting revenue off of that. Are you going to bite off more than you can chew? And for what?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they got to decide. And I think Conference USA is just between a rock and a hard place and just needs to dissolve and go away. It's okay to have 4 group of 5 conferences, in my opinion. I think that just solidifies the American, the Sun Belt, and the Mountain West. To be honest with you, I think those are the 3 biggest leagues in the group of 5, and the MAC is probably just a shade down below that.
Yeah, the MAC is doing their thing, and they're being very quiet in all of this discussion. Yeah, it's like they know what their geographic footprint is, they know what their impact is, and it looks like they have solidified their flanks as well. Remember, they booted UMass out of the conference.
Yeah,
for good reason.
Yeah, because UMass was not a good product, and you're looking at that both in the economic sense, the visual sense for your TV product, and on the field. And so they made an economic decision about booting UMass out just because that they were not putting something that was worthy of an investment by a conference in there. And so I think that the MAC is just quietly going about their business, doing what they're set to do. And they're not ruffling any feathers, but they know their geographic footprint. And I think that that's what you're seeing from all these other Go 5 conferences at the expense of Conference USA.
And do you think anything's going to happen like with the SWAC or the MEAC or any of these other teams? I think vulture pick.
No, I think that the SWAC and the MEAC are fine as HBCUs. I think that because remember, I think that the footprint that they have is solid. If they do anything, it might be from other schools that might be D2 that would want to jump up. But I think the SWAC and the MEAC right now as HBCUs are very solid. Remember that their path to the Celebration Bowl is very, very solid. So I think that those 2 conferences are fairly set for their marquee event, that bowl game that starts bowl season off in about 2 months.
Yeah. Guys, let's move things on here as we kind of plow through the show. We're at week number 9 this coming week. We're at the end of October. We're kind of hitting the home stretch, and each week we seem to be getting some better matchups. We talked about a few of them in the first half of the show, and I really think probably the biggest marquee matchup with the biggest implications in terms of what's going to happen in college football right now may very well be that Michigan State game being played in East Lansing, and it's a noon kickoff.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one piece of the puzzle of the Big Ten East that's going to be chipped away. Although the loser of that game, I say, still has a shot. But that's going to be one piece chipped away. Jim Harbaugh's got to win this game. He has to beat Michigan State. His track record against the Spartans is pretty atrocious, and Michigan fans know this. So this is one box he's got to check. That has really eluded him in his Michigan career.
I still say Peyton Thorne at Michigan State's a better quarterback than Michigan's Cade McNamara. So I think it's going to come down to that play. And I honestly think, I've got Michigan State by a touchdown in my league. So
I got Michigan State winning too.
Yeah, I'll go 3 for 3 there. I think it's going to be Michigan State and East Lansing, and it's that noon kick on Big Fox. So be prepared for Gus Johnson and his elevated vocal patterns.
And the number 1 team in the country is back in action this week at the world's largest
deleted
party cocktail party.
World's largest outing in Jacksonville, Florida, involving 2 football teams.
And alcohol.
Florida's been on a roll. Florida has, shall we say, struggled a little bit this year. But Georgia's had 2 weeks to kind of build up a few tricks and get some people healthy, including quarterback JT Daniels. But the question is, will he actually start over Stetson Bennett IV, who's been pretty damn good behind center this season?
The only way I see JT Daniels benching the mailman is if that JT Daniels is at 110% health. Stetson Bennett has been doing serviceable as a backup, but I think right now Stetson Bennett stays in the game and Georgia beats Florida by easily 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. So this might be a lopsided cocktail party is what you're saying.
Absolutely. I think Georgia's defense is legit, one of the best I've seen ever.
Lopsided cocktail party.
Yeah, which I'm going to go with too. Rivalry games scare me, especially when they're on neutral sites.
Yes.
But Georgia's just so good,
Mm-hmm.
and Florida
Davis for Heisman.
What's that?
Jordan Davis for Heisman.
So
they call him.
Georgia's going to win this 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. Watch out for Zeus. Zeus is going to have a huge game.
Yeah, this is not going to be pretty. And I think if memory serves, I think Florida's 4-6 in their last 10 overall. So Dan Mullen,
what's going on down there for him?
I don't know. This one could get out of control, and I'm sure that you'll have your world's largest outdoor redacted moment on the field at some point. You'll have that moment, but I still think this is Georgia's in control.
Absolutely.
Another big matchup featuring ranked teams in the SEC. Number 12 Ole Miss travels to Auburn to play the Tigers. Tough place to win a game. This could be a good game. Could be a good matchup.
I think if Auburn can't stop Matt Corral, the dual threat running and throwing the ball, that's going to be a problem. I think obviously Tank Bigsby's going to have a big day against.
Take the over, people.
It's going to be literally Katie bar the doors. This is going to be wide open. And be perfectly honest, it's a push. I think if I had to give somebody an edge, it would be Ole Miss. But I think this game could literally go either way.
Yeah, I'm going to favor Auburn just because they're at home, and I've seen too many magical tricks by Bo Nix right now, and I just think Matt Corral is in the Heisman hunt and does special things, but Bo Nix has just the best way I can describe him is he's just a winner.
Chaotic.
And he finds ways to win, and I love quarterbacks that way. So I'm going to make your better half very happy because I'm going with the Tigers.
Yes.
I chose not to pick against her, so I said no. But I think Brian Harsin has been the best thing to ever happen to Bo Nix.
Yeah,
to turn him into Fran Tarkenton, that's the best thing that's ever happened. Yeah, I think it's going to be one of
young
those
folks out there.
That's your Google search for today, kids.
Watch some old NFL films of the Scrambler.
Yes.
I want to bring up another matchup, another SEC matchup here, in part because I want to know if any of the three of you heard Mike Leach's post game after the State game this past.
No, I missed that.
I did. Phil, go ahead and insert it here into the show, and then we'll come back.
He went on a riff about Halloween candy for, it must have been about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and it was priceless.
The latest, there's still candy innovation, although a while back I found that Europe had better candy than we did overall.
Off the ground going, the reporter actually asked this question, and then the pirate went riff for like 2 minutes on gummy bears and candy corn, and I'm like, only Mike Leach could do something like this. That's insane.
Yeah, and they host Kentucky. Can Kentucky do it on the road? That's the big question for me. I think that Mississippi State, by the way, you can get in the door in Stark Vegas for as low as $16 on the secondary ticket market right now.
I think Levis is going to have a good game. I think Kentucky wins by 10.
Yeah, about 5 minutes to go in the show, guys. What games jump off the page to you? What games are you looking at and saying, I might want to tune this one in?
Iowa and Wisconsin jumps out to me because Wisconsin struggled this year. Iowa had that that blemish against Purdue, and this is the survival game for both teams in the Big Ten West. Iowa wants to stay on par with Minnesota, and Wisconsin wants to get back in the race and ruin Iowa's chances. So to me, that's a big game. I like Iowa because I think they're still mad as heck about losing to Purdue.
I think the one game I'm looking at, I've circled because Miami upset NC State this weekend. I've got Miami-Pittsburgh. I want to see what do the Hurricanes do to follow up that game, and is this a trap game for Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh? That's the one game on my schedule for Saturday that I've circled because I still think Kenny Pickett for Heisman, and this will be a big test against a legitimate quarterback in De'Aaron King. Obviously, they're struggling, but I want to see what my.
King's injured.
He's out.
He's out for the year.
Then Pittsburgh by 3 touchdowns. then that game's no longer a game on my radar. I guess I should read the 4-letter and figure out what's going on. But if there was another game, I'd look at
Kansas at Oklahoma State. J-Dub at T. Boone Pickens.
No, my next game then would be next thing down would be Notre Dame and North Carolina to see how Sam Howell can play against the Fighting Irish.
I'll give you one that's in the Fun Belt. 6:00 kick. State at Southern. Georgia
you stole my thunder, dude. I was going to mention that.
Georgia State at Georgia Southern. 6:00 kick, and you, sir, can get in the door for as low as $9 on the secondary ticket market at Paulson Stadium. For the sake of rivalry, I'm looking at State and Southern. That's always a fun one. Do not anticipate this game really being one of the higher scoring games in the series.
No,
but I would take the underdog to cover and the under as your parlay in that one at Paulson Stadium in Statesboro.
Well,
always
Phil
got to pick the old mater in that rivalry.
Phil, you and I need to take a road trip down to Statesboro, grab the Michael, and wear our colors for Georgia Southern. Go Eagles!
That's right. You have
he's a dad. He's a Southern dad.
Dad.
Yeah.
I'm an Eagle dad. Yes, I am. One quick one I want to mention. How far has a Florida State-Clemson rivalry fallen?
Oh,
well, because
they play at Death Valley on Saturday. I give Florida State a chance to win this game.
I avoided this
rule it
on
out.
Purpose
They've been playing much better.
Yep.
Ooh, we beat UMass and whoever the hell it was we beat the week before. We're 3-4. Oh, Syracuse?
North Carolina.
You beat North Carolina.
Right. Yeah,
Mac Brown can't beat Florida State.
Yeah, we were a 17-point dog beating North Carolina. And then we turned around and beat UMass 59-3. We're 3-4 going to Clemson. We're going to get our butts handed to us. Thanks for answering.
I don't think so. I don't think Florida State in this game.
I like Florida State.
Florida State may not win, but they're not going to get smoked.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have Florida State in this one. And another SEC, and going back to the SEC, one that I'm looking at, a game of the winless conference guys, Missouri and Vanderbilt. I honestly have Vanderbilt coming out with their first conference win in this game. It's at home at Vanderbilt Stadium. Anchor down, Commodore's going to come out of this game with a win.
They have been
and the moral of the story is do not have the color scheme black and gold in the SEC.
No.
Guys, what do you say we put a bow on things and wrap it up here for this week?
Wrap it up.
Cue the fabulous Thunderbirds.
For OSG J-Dub, for Brother Wilkie, for OSG Nelson, and for me, OSG Phil, we thank you for tuning in and listening to our show. Hopefully we educated you a little bit on the world of college football because, quite honestly, we educated ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, do you know De'Aaron King is injured? I just found that out.
Surprise, surprise, surprise. And we learned what flavor Mike Leach likes when it comes to candy.
Haribo gummy bears, not the sour ones. Got to be the Haribos.
Sour Patch Kids for me. Anyway, enough of that. Oh, and dark chocolate, too, just to kind of smooth things over.
Yes.
For the gang, I am OSG Phil. I'm going to wrap it up before things kind of get goofy here. Have a great week, everybody. We will be back on Halloween weekend with a wrap-up of everything college football for you then. Until then, have a great week, and so long, everybody.